All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we'll be recapping week 11 of the NFL season. Josh beat me in fantasy, so there's the elephant in the room. If anyone is wondering, Josh won in fantasy, so he gets to crown himself this week. But I get to crown myself too because I won picks this week by one pick. So there's that. I get to win picks at least. I get one win for the weekend.
Hey, tough rivalry week. Your Broncos won, my Chargers lost. It came at a sacrifice, and you won picks. But we'll take that fantasy dub this week. I'm sure we'll play each other again, hopefully in the playoffs. Even though currently it's not looking so pretty, it's an absolute bloodbath. But yeah, crazy week, crazy week 11, crazy week ahead of us. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, we've got just a crazy tight race in our fantasy playoffs right now. But we'll get on to our stud and goof of the week segment right now. I'm excited to talk about our stud of the week. It's kind of a joint stud of the week. CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. They are both just lighting the world on storm. Every single week we have to talk about them in this light. It's pretty crazy. But Tank Dell on 10 targets, he had 8 receptions, 149 yards, and 1 touchdown. And CJ Stroud 27 for 37, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the reason he didn't get the stud of the week award is because he had 3 picks as well. But the Texans are going to keep just playing hard, and they came out with the win. So respect to Tank and CJ.
Yeah, I mean, they're really coming alive, Tank and CJ. And CJ was actually the one, which is kind of a cool little thing. He told the Texans to draft Tank Dell, and it has worked out. I mean, Tank Dell and CJ have just an incredible connection. And Tank Dell the last couple weeks has just absolutely been on fire. So I love the stud of the week. And then to bounce over the goof of the week, Austin Eckler, man, something's not right with him. He is just ultra disappointing. He looks like he's lost a step. He's like taking himself out of the pass game. He can't run routes without slipping. He fumbles more than he scores touchdowns. It's like Austin Eckler, goof of the week. Something's weird with Austin Eckler though. Something's going on.
Yeah, so he had 10 carries for 64 yards, and in the air where he usually excels, he had 2 catches for 6 yards. So that's just not Austin Eckler. He had a fumble, and he had an opportunity to break away for a long touchdown, and it's kind of going viral on Twitter right now because he just doesn't look very fast at all. He doesn't have that breakaway speed anymore. So Austin Eckler is an interesting outlook. It's a little bit questionable. I really don't think the Chargers will retain him at the very least next year. In the offseason. And it's interesting for fantasy too. You definitely need him to step it up.
It just shows you why the running back market crashes, and it crashes so early because it is a young man's position. And Austin Eckler, you wouldn't have, noticed last year that he'd lost a step, but you go one more year and these guys lose steps pretty fast. And Austin Eckler, absolute goof of the week. I mean, there was a couple times where he was wide open and he slips on a route. And then his fumble in the red zone was absolutely brutal, and he doesn't look good this year. I'll just flat out say he does not look. He can't run the ball very good. His routes are bad. He drops passes, and he is our goof of the week. So sorry, fantasy managers, he's looking terrible.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to step it up and bounce back. But we'll get on to our game recap segments. We'll start off with the Thursday night game. The Bengals went into Baltimore and lost 34-20, and they didn't have T. Higgins or Sam Hubbard, and Joe Burrow going down definitely really hurt. That obviously the tide really changed in this game when Burrow went out. That's kind of when the Ravens started pounding it on, and Jake Browning wasn't really too competent. He was able to get it to Jamar Chase for a late touchdown, but other than that, it is really scary for the Bengals outlook moving forward. They have Joe Flacco and Jake Browning, and oh wait, they don't even have Joe Flacco. Is it the
No,
Browns that have Joe Flacco?
Joe
Oh,
Flacco playing with the Browns. Yep.
so it's just Jake Browning, and they're gonna have to figure it out for the rest of the season without Joe Burrow. That's a real concern. And for the Ravens, you're not concerned. They're dominant.
Yeah, I can't believe me and you and picks both took the Bengals to win. It was just like us feeling confident for some reason, and given if Joe Burrow might have played the whole game, might have had a different outlook. But wow, I mean, when Jake Browning went in, the whole Bengals offense just died, and the Ravens just took over from there. And the Ravens again, they bounced back. They're looking like after this week, after that Thursday night football game, looking like they're bouncing back in those black uniforms, and looks like a top team in the NFL again after their weird loss the previous week. But yeah, the Bengals outlook for fantasy and stuff going forward scares me a little bit because how inefficient everyone was with Jake Browning and how much the dynamic of the offense changes without Joe Burrow. I'm a little nervous. I think for Jamar Chase, I think for all the receivers, I'm really nervous. I think maybe this could possibly, I don't know. I mean, Joe Mixon, being the running back, I think it hurts him too. I mean, I think it hurts the whole offense overall, and it does freak me out. I don't think Jake Browning. I think the receivers, take a step or two down. I think Mixon might be fine overall, just because the volume he'll probably get. But yeah, I'm a little bit panicked on the receivers for the Bengals.
Mixon is the best option moving forward. But do you know exactly when Burrow went out of this game? I think it was like the second quarter, right? Sometime in the
Yeah.
second quarter.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so for example, this is kind of how I think it's going to go in fantasy. For example, if I'm being completely honest, you had Joe Mixon and he had like 18 in the second quarter. He had 18 fantasy points in the second quarter already, and I think he was on pace for like 40 because Burrow was feeding him, and Burrow was like the Bengals were on pace to have a good game and score. So, I really think that does hurt because he finished with like 21 fantasy points Mixon. So, just Browning in the offense just totally just makes it hard to have any type of upside. It is really hard for any Bengals option moving forward. And for the Ravens, you're pretty optimistic. Obviously, Mark Andrews going down sucks, but Zay Flowers and Odell look like real good options.
Yeah, now if Odell's on your waiver wire, I think you might want to, put in a claim, throw some fab at him because Mark Andrews going down. He's now looks like the second target. He's had back-to-back good weeks in fantasy. So I think it's time to buy in on Odell Beckham Jr. and see if you can't get him on your roster.
Yeah, the Seekers have been eyeing him for a few weeks now, and I think he's definitely rosterable now. And is there any other takeaways in this one?
No, dominant win for the Ravens. Bengals playoffs hopes are probably dead at this point with an absolute, blood race in the AFC. So we'll see go moving forward, but panicking on the Bengals right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. But we'll get on to the next one, another AFC North matchup. The 6-4 Steelers lost to the 7-3 Browns. The Browns win at home 13-10, a really low scoring, close game. And I think my biggest takeaway in this one for the Steelers, the losing team, is Jaylen Warren is an absolute stud. He runs with an absolute purpose, and he's their star on offense. It's pretty crazy. He's their spark plug that they need to get going more. And the Browns, the best defense in the NFL. We've been saying it for a few weeks. This is really fun to watch. We both predicted him to win just because of that defense. We weren't too worried about DTR, and DTR played serviceable. He played some good football, so I'm happy about that. And yeah, I just am overall proud, honestly, of the Browns that they could withstand the Deshaun Watson injury, and their defense looked the exact same.
Yeah, the Browns defense stood strong, which was great to see. As of this morning, the Steelers fired Matt Canada. So that's a big takeaway. That should definitely help improve the offense. Matt Canada's felt like a crutch for the Steelers for a couple of years now. And they finally dog him because this offense looks flat and Kenny Pickett just looks not good. And so maybe a new face, maybe something else can change up the Steelers offense. But yeah, like what you said, I mean, Jaylen Warren is the best running back in that backfield. He is substantially better than Najee. He's electric. He's fast. So I mean, that's a bright spot for the Steelers. And I mean, but yeah, I mean, we'll see who they hire, offensive coordinator, if somebody steps up. But that should be a little bit of a spark for this offense. I think Matt Canada has been a crutch.
Yeah, so Jaylen Warren, the only like must start for the Steelers moving forward. I don't know if there is another must start. George Pickens has another -1 yard receiving game, so that is just he had -1 yards rushing. Sorry, I read that wrong. He had 38 yards receiving, but still, it's completely terrible. Deontay Johnson 16 yards on 2 catches. So that offense is just anemic, and you can't start anyone other than Jaylen Warren. You can't even start Najee at this point. It's pretty bad. And for the Browns, you are more optimistic. Amari Cooper had a good game. DTR kind of made these options serviceable, and Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford kind of split again. It's a little bit gross, but Elijah Moore, he still gets his 7 targets. He leads the team in receiving. So Elijah Moore, David Njoku, both still pretty good options for the Browns.
Yeah, and we kind of knew this was going to be a lower scoring game. It just kind of felt, it's one of those division games. They're both playing with just serviceable quarterbacks at this point. But hopefully next week, and they both have really good defenses. So I think next week we can see all the fantasy options improve. But yeah, overall, not the best fantasy game unless you have the defenses.
Yeah, let's go into a more higher scoring, better fantasy game, a more exciting one. The Cardinals went into Houston and lost to the Texans 21-16 in a pretty close game. I feel like it was a back and forth. CJ Stroud was doing his best to let the Cardinals in this one and give Kyler some chances, but the Cardinals couldn't come through in the end, and the Texans just have a good team, man. The D'Amico Ryans is such a great coach. His defense is coached up pretty well, honestly, and this offense is relentless. They just keep coming. They're so good. They're consistently scoring deep touchdowns. Stroud is just such a good passer. He's throwing absolute dimes at Tank Dell every week. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny. The Texans were letting the Cardinals just hang in this one, and I kind of expected having Kyler Murray back. This game was going to be closer than what people thought, and the Cardinals did put up a good fight, and their defense really was giving CJ Stroud a heck of a time. I mean, he threw more interceptions in this game than he has all year. So it was probably CJ Stroud's worst game. But I mean, CJ Stroud's worst game still, is 27 for 37 for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. But it was just those dang picks. It looks like he was just trying to keep the game close. But ultimately that Texans defense is the Texans just as a team are just built so solid and so whole. And it's just pretty beautiful. Even when CJ Stroud turns over the ball, it's just the whole team comes together and just all aspects. They're just grinding on all aspects, and it's beautiful to see. And the Cardinals, I think we can kind of, Kyler wasn't amazing, but he's very, I think he was still very good. I mean, Kyler going 20 for 30, 214, one touchdown through the air, one interception, and then on the ground, 7 for 51 and a touchdown. My only takeaway is can we get James Conner some touchdowns? Gosh, Kyler, that's one thing Kyler does is he takes away the touchdowns from James Conner. He runs them in, he throws them in. But from a fantasy aspect, you have James Conner. I think you've been frustrated the last couple of weeks, but what do you think, Dan? What do you think moving forward?
So for the Cardinals in fantasy, I think Kyler, like you said, he's a touchdown vulture. So he's a rushing touchdown lock like every week. I think he's just a good start option for a quarterback, and I think he's very similar to Justin Fields. And then yeah, for James Conner, I think you like what you saw last week. He gets a lot more involved. You definitely want to see him get more involved in the receiving game like he was at the beginning of the year, and it also kind of led to more touchdowns. So hopefully Connor gets more involved, but I think he's still like a good start and a borderline RB2 option. So I do like James Conner, and because the Cardinals are going to be in a higher scoring offense with Kyler in there. So even if he's vulturing touchdowns, he'll get there. And then Hollywood Brown is a little bit scary. Hollywood has another bad week with Kyler back, and it looks like Trey McBride is more involved than Hollywood. So that is something to monitor. I would not start Hollywood right now. Trey McBride, you can fire up as always. And for the Texans, you start every Texans option. They had some injuries here, but you start everyone for the Texans. And Devin Singletary had another good week. You just monitor that Dameon Pierce situation.
Yeah, you just said that perfectly. I love it. Yeah, I think I'm hitting the panic on Hollywood. I don't know what's happened to Hollywood. And then the Texans, as you said, I mean, it's just crazy. CJ Stroud distributes the ball so well. It looks like it's been the Tank Dell show the last couple weeks. I mean, Nico Collins still 7 receptions, 65 yards. Dalton Schultz 2 for 32, but gets in the end zone. They'll probably be getting Noah Brown back next week. Robert Woods 5 for 44. But I mean, they're all producing. They're all producing, and there's no reason CJ Stroud can't make 3 or 4 people fantasy relevant week to week.
Yeah, our stud of the week. Shout out to Tank Dell, man. Just an absolute baller. Shout out to our stud of the week. And we'll get on to the next game. The Titans went into Jacksonville and lost to the Jaguars 34-14. And we called this one perfectly. We said you didn't have to watch it because the Titans don't show up on the road. They haven't won a road game all year, and they continue to do so. They had a pretty bad outing. The Jaguars defense kind of teed off on Will Levis. Only 158 yards for Will Levis. He did have 2 touchdowns, though, and one of them was an absolute beautiful throw. Like, I still think that the flashes are there for Will Levis. It just, he's not in the best situation. It's a little early, but I think that the flashes are there for Levis to keep wanting him to, or keep him out there as a starter, and want to see more from Levis, because I'm optimistic for his future. But the offense, Derrick Henry, 38 rushing yards. Chris Moore had one carry for 38 rushing yards. He was their leading rusher. And DeAndre Hopkins has that long touchdown. That was good. But other than that, there was just no offensive production. And then for the Jaguars, you are kind of optimistic to see them kind of get things going on offense with Calvin Ridley. He had 7 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 9 targets. So that is big for Ridley owners.
Yeah, this game kind of felt like just like the Titans fell asleep at the wheel. But yeah, I definitely for Titans fans, I wouldn't panic on Will Levis. I thought he did fine. I mean, he was 13 of 17, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. It just the offense seems kind of anemic. Same with the defense. It seems like they kind of need new faces. They need a fresh reset. And Will Levis is just kind of thrown out in the fire right now, but he's getting good. He's getting good game experience. You know, he's going to get beat up. He's going to get more comfortable. But moving forward, you know, I would be definitely hopeful for next year. I think Will Levis will take a big step in year 2. But yeah, the whole Titans just seem anemic. And then it was a good bounce back game for the Jags. Trevor Lawrence looked really good. He was out there playing surgical football again. He was getting it done through the air and on the ground where he got a rushing touchdown. And then, yeah, like you said, you love to see Calvin Ridley finally get involved, getting 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions, 103 yards. Finally, a good Calvin Ridley game. I don't know if that's going to continue. I still have confidence Christian Kirk is by far their wide receiver 1. But yeah, other than that, kind of a snooze fest on the Titans side of the ball, and then the Jaguars kind of went out there and just had a good bounce back.
Yeah, it is scary because they totally hyper targeted Calvin Ridley this game. And so that kind of makes you need to start Calvin Ridley. And you could totally see them going back to hyper targeting ETN, Kirk, and Ingram, because ETN, Kirk, and Ingram weren't really relevant in this game fantasy wise. So it is scary for your Jaguars options. It seems like if they target Ridley, then the rest of the options aren't good. But if they don't, then Ridley's just irrelevant. So it's something scary to monitor. You kind of have to start all their options right now.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Raiders went into Miami and lost to the Dolphins 20-13, a closer one than a lot of people expected. The Dolphins didn't light up the scoreboard as much as most people expected, I guess. And Aiden O'Connell didn't have the best game. Jalen Ramsey went absolutely off. He's probably the biggest takeaway of this game is Jalen Ramsey's back. He's a top 5 corner. He's solidified. Top alpha corner. He's an absolute beast. He's a playmaker. Always making plays for the Dolphins. You love to see it. And yeah, I definitely wanted to see the Dolphins offense put more points up. Tyreek Hill's been awesome as usual, but Jalen Waddle's been kind of a disappointment. I feel kind of bad for his fantasy owners at this point.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say Devon A-Chain. Hate to see it.
That
Brutal.
sucks.
Yeah, that's brutal. Waiting all that time for that. That was brutal. But yeah, I mean, like you said, biggest takeaway I'm gonna have to say in this one is Jalen Ramsey. You know, he's allowed a 0.0 passer rating on the season, which is just unheard of. He's in year 8. He is still locked down. He goes out there and he gets 2 picks in this one. That was just phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, this one was a little bit closer than we expected. I can't believe that. I mean, the Raiders looked better than what even with Aiden O'Connell throwing 3 interceptions and them hanging in there and only losing by a touchdown, is crazy. But yeah, I mean, from a fantasy aspect, like you said, Tyreek Hill is absolutely electric. He's wide receiver 1 every freaking week. That dude is just amazing, getting open, getting touchdowns. Jalen Waddle is just kind of, I don't know what's happened to Jalen Waddle this year. I mean, it's not like he had a horrible game. He's still 4 for 55, but he's just kind of like he's fallen asleep at the wheel. And then the Dolphins running backs have just not been super efficient lately. I mean, Raheem Mostert definitely with 22 carries, 86 yards, but didn't get in the end zone. He had only 1 catch for 7 yards, so not a great fantasy day. Obviously, I think he'll be fine moving forward. It's just kind of an off day for the Dolphins offense. And then the Raiders on that side of the ball. It's finally nice to see Devontae Adams get into the end zone. That was huge. Outside of that, I mean, their offense is kind of a snooze fest. Josh Jacobs was pretty much irrelevant. I mean, yeah, the Dolphins defense just kept it low scoring, and they were able to just pull out 1 more touchdown to beat them. But yeah, overall, kind of a snooze fest of a game for what we thought would be a bloodbath.
Yeah, we definitely got robbed of A-Chan's performance. He got hurt on his first carry, so that's terrible. Hopefully, moving forward, I hope A-Chan can be back soon because he's a big option for that Dolphins team. I feel like he makes them a lot better. Mostert was all right, but Yeah, and for the Raiders, you are happy about that Devontae Adams performance. He actually played really good. 7 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets. Josh Jacobs wasn't great, but at least Aiden O'Connell will hyper target Adams and make him a good fantasy option.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see that performance from Devontae Adams going forward. Definitely been robbed of it this year, but that was promising.
Yep. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Chargers went into Green Bay and lost to the Packers 23-20. Honestly, crazy. I didn't expect the Chargers to lose this one. I don't have like too much to even take away. I feel like Eckler did kind of lose this game away, fumbled it away literally. I don't know. It was a tight one, and the Packers came away home. Over your takeaways.
The Chargers are their own biggest enemy. What the Chargers managed to do to lose will astonish you from week to week. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, a big fourth down right at the beginning of the game. Justin Herbert gets Donald Parham over the middle for a huge drop on fourth down. Chargers get to the red zone. Justin Herbert hits Keenan Allen right in the hands, drops a touchdown. Chargers get to the red zone again. Austin Eckler fumbles the ball, and then they have a chance on top of this to win the game. Justin Herbert throws a beautiful pass, steps up in the pocket with 3 seconds to go, hits Quentin Johnson right in the hands for a go-ahead touchdown. He drops it. The defense on the Chargers is just anemic. They don't exist. The passing defense is absolutely horrendous. They make everybody look phenomenal. I mean, Jay Love had his best career day on the Chargers defense. His first time he threw over 300 yards in his career. He looked like the recoming of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, just the takeaway is the Chargers need to fire Staley. They need some new identity. Quentin Johnston looks like a bust. And the Chargers getting there, they lose there's no one else to blame but the Chargers. They lose themselves the game every week.
Brandon Staley does need to be fired. I think that's evident at the very least at this point. Brandon Staley does need to be fired. He looks insecure and incompetent in his post-game interviews. It's getting to that point where he might lose the locker room here soon, and it's a really star-powered locker room. So that's not ever good. And yeah, I did want to shout out the Packers. Like you said, this was definitely Jordan Love's best game. He had 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did look the part. He was making some good throws. He made Christian Watson relevant finally, and he also had his rookie Jaden Reed had a huge day, 46 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and then through the air he had 46 yards as well. So great day for Jaden Reed, the rookie. He really sparked this team, and yeah, shout out to the Packers. They played well at home.
Yeah, no, it looks like the Packers, honestly, on the offense have had 2 really good games in a row. Love to see Jaden Reed. I think if he's still available in your fantasy league, go throw some fab at him, go put in a claim for him. Because I mean, with a hurt Aaron Jones now, Jaden Reed looks like he will be getting some carries, which was kind of a fun way they used him. I mean, they haven't used him on the ground this year, and he was pretty electric. And let's see, Romeo Doubs was fine.
Dontavian Wicks, he's someone we
Yeah.
need to talk about. He's good.
Yeah, no, he was a stud. He was actually the one that, mossed Michael Davis and just absolutely made him look like a little kid on that Packers final drive to win the game. But yeah, I mean, overall, there's a little bit of optimism and hope for the Packers because, I mean, their offense really came together today and looked like they played a little bit more complimentary football.
Yeah, big win for the Packers at home in those nice jerseys. We'll get on to the next one. Our self-proclaimed Michael Myers bloody murder game of the week, like we predicted. It came through. The Cowboys went into Carolina and beat them, the Panthers 33-20. I can't talk, geez. And yeah, I think the takeaway is just Deron Bland. It's his 4th pick 6 of the year. That guy's crazy. He seems like once he gets the pick, it just seems like it's destined to be an interception, or sorry, a touchdown every time when Deron Bland gets a pick. It seems like he's a video game character, and his attributes go up every time he gets a pick. He has to score a touchdown. He's a beast. He looks like just a star out there. He looks like Trayvon Diggs souped up. He's an awesome player. I love Deron Bland. He was an awesome rookie out of Fresno State last year. He leads the league in picks over the last 2 years. So shout out to Deron Bland and that Micah Parsons and that Cowboys defense is just too dominant.
Oh yeah, I mean the Cowboys are just dominant, and the Panthers, sorry to say it pretty bluntly, they just kind of suck. And we all knew the outcome of this game. It was just going to be a bloodbath. And the Cowboys, they run it up, and their defense just absolutely is dominant. And the poor Panthers had no chance. Bryce Young he doesn't have the talent to go out there and compete with the Cowboys. We'll see how the Panthers. I think Panthers fans, at this point, you just look forward to next year. You see what changes, what stars you can get in the offseason. But yeah, 1-9, your season's definitely over. Your team's not good. I don't know if Frank Wright is the move or to blame for this, but I mean the roster's not super talented. And then you see the other side of the ball. The Cowboys are just absolutely dominant, and they have probably one of the, if not the best roster in the NFL, top 3 roster with just a dominant defense. And just bloody. It was our Michael Myers game of the week. So that's the takeaway.
Yeah, and then the fantasy takeaways, there are some interesting ones. Tony Pollard is finally back. He had a really good fantasy performance, so you're really optimistic about Tony Pollard. Finally, they get him involved, and Brandon Cooks led the Cowboys in receiving. Obviously, that's not gonna be consistent or anything, but it's crazy that CD couldn't get any big plays. Brandon Cooks had his usual 4 targets though, so it looks like he'll be back to the 4 target spread that he gets every week. And then for the Carolina Panthers, it's a little scary in that running back room. You can't start Chuba Hubbard or Miles Sanders. It's like Miles Sanders is giving them every reason to not play him, and they're still playing Miles Sanders. They're giving him more carries than Chuba Hubbard, so you have absolutely no reason to start either of these players. You barely have a reason to roster either of these players, so do not be starting Chuba anymore, no matter what. And like we said, Adam Thielen was a really good start this week. Frank Reich took over play calling, and as you see, he feeds Thielen a lot.
Yeah, Thielen's the only startable player on the Panthers moving forward. Everyone else, you can ride the bench or not even be rostered. And then, the Cowboys, I mean, from a fantasy aspect, they're going to be just great. I mean, Dak is a starting quarterback at this point. He's a plug and play every week. Tony Pollard, you'd love to see him come back. CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, really good starts every week. But from the Panthers side of the ball, it's Adam Thielen. The rest is history.
Yeah, and with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Bears went into Detroit and lost 31-26 to the Lions, and a pretty good effort by the Bears. A pretty close battle. The Bears were actually up in this game most of the game, and the Lions had a pretty good comeback effort. I don't know. How did you feel about Justin Fields in this one? I feel like he had a pretty good performance against a decent Lions team. The Lions defense has been pretty bad recently, so I did predict him to score, but I thought Justin Fields looked all right until the end.
Yeah, I thought Justin Fields actually played really good football for coming back this week. He looked like he was out there playing for his job, and I'll give him credit because it is a really good Lions defense. They did give up a lot of points last week, however, but I mean Justin Fields went out there, he played good football, and he played the style of football that you like to see. When Justin Fields was so electric last year, he was running the ball, and he had 18 carries for 104 yards, which was phenomenal to see. And then, he got it done through the air too. He wasn't fantastic through the air, but 16 for 23, 169 and a touchdown was good with a DJ Moore, long touchdown. Which was good to see. It's good to see for a fantasy aspect to see DJ Moore and Justin Fields back together. Both of their fantasy, I mean, DJ Moore's fantasy is going to go up from there. But back to Justin Fields. I thought he played good enough.
Yeah, we kind of get the full circle of outcomes with Justin Fields. So he kind of makes the running backs worse. I feel like he had 104 rushing yards, so he kind of really hurt Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson and Deontay Foreman, who all kind of had a split with Justin Fields. So that's really scary for fantasy, but it also really boosts DJ Moore in fantasy. It makes him into like a high tier wide receiver 1 almost. So it kind of evens out with Justin Fields in the fantasy options. It also makes Cole Kmet almost irrelevant because he loves DJ Moore so much. So the Bears running back options, you really are scared about with Justin Fields, but DJ Moore, you're really optimistic about.
Yeah, 100%. But Justin Fields, I think now is startable if you have him, just because he's bringing back that running aspect to his game. So I think you can start Justin Fields going forward. But then the Lions on the other side of the ball, to talk about them a little bit, Jared Goff throwing 3 picks. Not his best day out there. I mean, he still got it done through the air with 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. And what were your takeaway from Jahmyr Gibbs? That's kind of the volume we kind of expect him to see. He was able to get in the end zone. He was 8 for 36, a touchdown. And then I guess I love to see it through the air, mostly 6 for 59. Pretty good game from Gibbs. Montgomery did lead in carries, and was able to get a couple of receptions. But these two Lions running backs are absolutely electric.
Yeah, both of them are must-start stars every week, and Gibbs will get there through the air. And yeah, goal line running back Gibbs is pretty funny. It's crazy to see that. And David Montgomery is an automatic touchdown as well every time he's in the goal line. And yeah, Jared Goff was a let's just say he didn't really want to win this one. He wasn't the reason they won this one. I'll say that. But respect to the Lions for getting another resilient victory. They have a lot of those this year, but it wasn't really thanks to Goff. I think I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. And before we move on from this one, I want to shout out Aiden Hutchinson. With that game winning fumble that he got at the end on Justin Fields. Yeah, Lions, they're getting it done. Doesn't matter if it looks good or bad or ugly. They're finding ways to win, and the Lions are 8-2, and that's, I think, the first time since JFK was president. So shout out to the Lions. I love to see it.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson taking that big step up has really boosted this Lions team. And yeah, for the Bears, you can definitely start Justin Fields in fantasy, like Josh said. You kind of needed that confirmation to see if he was injured, because it was a pretty bad injury. But he looks fully healthy, and you can definitely start him. And he's a good option moving forward.
100%.
And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Giants going to Washington and beat the Commanders 31-19. I did not expect that. Sorry for disrespecting you to Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito. You're no longer the worst quarterback in New York. You're no longer in the New York tier of quarterbacks. You're moving up. Yeah, there's someone else in his own tier of New York quarterbacks, and he's not even in that tier anymore, I guess. So yeah, just respect to Tommy DeVito. He's an absolute baller. Literally every single play that he made in this game, I was just shook. I was absolutely surprised. I wasn't really expecting anything from the Giants in this game. And shout out to Saquon Barkley. He is an absolute star. The Commanders knew that Saquon was their entire offense, and they couldn't even stop it. Saquon went for 14 carries, 83 yards with one 36-yard run. And then in the air, he had 4 catches, 57 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So absolutely huge from Saquon. He really carried this Giants team, literally won the game for the Giants. It was awesome. You love to see it for the Giants.
Yeah, and you hate to see it for the Redskins this week. I'm calling them the Redskins on purpose because it's one of those Redskins weeks, and so they don't even get the right to be called the original name. But yeah, Sam Howell doing his best job at trying to lose this game. Their whole offense and everything just felt anemic, and it was just a bad loss. I mean, it really was a bad loss for the Commanders. Overall, just pretty piss poor performance. I mean, and I kind of want to blame Sam Howell for this one. I think he just really did his best impression and his best job to lose this game. And I mean, it's kind of crazy in back-to-back weeks. I think Brian Robinson is the lead receiver. When you have Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, it's just weird. It's like they can't get their 2 best receivers involved too much for whatever reason I don't really understand, and they're gonna suffer for it. And over here, old Tommy DeVito, creating his own tier of quarterbacks in New York. I hear throwing for 3 touchdowns, going 18 for 26, 246 yards. You love to see it. It's hilarious. And yeah, Saquon Barkley, just an incredible year from Saquon Barkley when everyone knows that he is the only player on that offense that's really, really relevant. And he goes out there and he still puts up numbers, even when, the defense is keying on him. So shout out Saquon, a heck of a game.
Yeah, mad respect to Saquon and mad respect to known receiving back Brian Robinson, because he's always just been such a receiving back that he needs to get 9 targets and lead this Commanders team in targets. That's pretty ridiculous. That's crazy. You got to feed Terry more. You got to feed Dotson, who had a nice touchdown, way more. It's kind of unacceptable. You love to see it for Brian Robinson fantasy owners, but yeah, and in fantasy, you're really optimistic for both of those running backs that I just mentioned, and the receiving options in this game, other than Terry McLaurin, you're scared about. Honestly, I think Terry McLaurin's the only other one you start.
Yeah, on a week to week basis, you have to start Terry McLaurin. I think he's like wide receiver 18 in PPR. So you have to start him. But yeah, the last couple of weeks have been scary with just how much Sam Howell is targeting the running backs. But hopefully that gets better going forward. Also want to shout out Giants defense. I mean, they're really a heck of a game for them. Sexy Dexy and Thibodeau combining for 3 sacks. Isaiah Simmons was a great ad via trade from the Cardinals. He had the game winning pick six, or was it a fumble six? I can't remember. I think it was a pick.
Yeah, I think it was a pick. I think it was a pick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm looking now. It was a game winning pick six. He looks good, but yeah, the Giants came alive in this one, and old DeVito out there, just creating a tier of his own for New York quarterback. So you love to see that.
Yeah, and Sam Howell's had a few good weeks, but that was a bad performance from Sam Howell. So definitely monitor that one. We'll get on to the next one. The Buccaneers went into San Fran and lose to the Niners 27-14. It's a perfect day from Brock Purdy, an absolute perfect QBR from Brock Purdy, 21 for 25, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. So you love to see that from Purdy. He had a few options really go off in this one. He had Brandon Ayuk have 5 catches, 156 yards, and a touchdown, with George Kittle getting 8 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. And McCaffrey was really involved as well, getting a receiving touchdown and 78 yards through the ground. So typical Niners, they're going to get everyone involved. Everyone had a good day, and for the Buccaneers, they put up a good effort. Rachaad White had a really, really good game. He showed he's a baller. He juked someone he juked Hufanga literally so bad that he tore his ACL. So that's terrible for Hufanga, but it showed how electric Rachaad White is. He had a touchdown, and he was kind of everything for the Buccaneers. Him and Mike Evans are kind of their whole team.
That was crazy. I mean, it was so brutal. He tore his ACL. Not very often do you get to say you juke somebody literally just out of their knee socket or wherever your ACL. I think it's in your knee. Yeah, that's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, at this point, we kind of knew the Bucks would regress to the mean. About 4-6. We knew after the first couple of games this is how the Bucks season is going to look. It was Baker Magic the first couple of weeks, but this was always what the Bucks were going to be. And yeah, the 49ers just looking surgical. They're looking like they've gotten back into the 49ers form, looking dangerous, a team you do not want to play. Christian McCaffrey, electric. Purdy, just out there being surgical, has the best pass rate in the NFL, just getting it done. And yeah, they're so good at distributing. The defense looks better. So I mean, 49ers again looking scary, and yeah, the Bucks just regressing to the mean.
Yeah, and honestly, not too much to take away. And we know who everyone we're starting in fantasy in both these teams. So I guess we'll move on to the next one. The Buffalo Bills beat the New York Jets at home 32-6. Kind of an end of an era for the Jets, and the season's kind of over for the Jets. I think they're kind of out of things with that 4-6 record. You kind of expect them to be completely out of it. They're not a team like some other teams with a good offense that can kind of bounce back from that record. So definitely depressing for the Jets. I think they crippled themselves a little bit too long for this season. Unfortunately, hopefully Aaron Rodgers can get back on Christmas and win them a game or two, and they can
A little bit of optimism going forward.
Hopefully that makes them feel a little bit better going into next season. But yeah, it's just absolutely unfortunate for the Jets. Their season's I would say it's over. You got Timmy Boyle starting on Black Friday this week. It should be a interesting one. I think Trevor Simeon's the one you want to be starting out of those 3 options. But yeah, shout out to the Bills. Shout out to Josh Allen. He really found some things. He really clicked. Khalil Shakir had a great play. You love to see that. And Stephon Diggs sucks. Stephon Diggs is terrible. He's the worst receiver of all time. I can't believe how bad he's been 2 weeks in a row, just getting under 10 fantasy points 2 weeks in a row, getting completely shut down by Surtain, and Sauce Gardner under a pretty good game in this one. So shout out to the Jets defense, I guess, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, I kind of predicted this one. I felt like the Bills, once they scored a touchdown or two, of course they'd just be out of reach. And yeah, the Jets, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, me and you have been shouting from the rooftop. They should have traded weeks ago for Josh Dobbs, for a Jameis Winston. They could have kept their season alive. Ultimately, it falls on Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas and whatever upper management just can't seem to admit when they're wrong about somebody. And they kept it going for too long. They kept the charade going for too long, and they end up suffering for it. And this crappy thing is Aaron Rodgers looks like he is going to come back in time, for the playoffs, and they couldn't, get a winning record with the best defense. They kind of fell apart this game just because I think they have nothing to play for. But, a top 3 defense in the NFL. But shout out to the Bills. A really statement, good win. They lost to them week 1 somehow. And Josh Allen wasn't going to let that happen again. He's pretty good through the air, 20 of 32, 275, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 1 pick. And then I want to, you're shouting out Stephon Diggs for being awful. I'm going to shout out Dalton Kincaid for just being solid week to week. He looks like he is their number 1 target. He's getting the most targets and receptions at a week to week basis. I absolutely love to see it. Dalton Kincaid, I've been wanting this all season, and he's really looking like he's coming into his own, and he's just almost, in my opinion, he's like a top 3, top 4 tight end going forward into next season too. So love to see Dalton Kincaid really progress.
Yeah, you love to see that from Kincaid. He's a must start moving forward, and all the Bills options you're pretty optimistic about. And yeah, for the Jets, the last takeaway I want to say is that their biggest play through the air was by Thomas Morstead, 18-yard pass by their punter, Thomas Morstead. So absolutely electric.
Yes.
Morstead.
Yes.
Great job by the Jets inserting some new passers into that offense. It really helped. But we'll get on to the next game. The Seahawks went into LA and lost to the Rams 17-16 by 1 point. A really good game. It was a interesting one where Drew Lock kind of was in at the very end because Gino got hurt. So I think that's a lot of the excuses that the Seahawks fans are making for losing this game is that Drew Lock wasn't great when he came in. He wasn't. He came in and was kind of just staring down Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he couldn't complete anything. So that was a little bit unfortunate. The Rams kind of got a little bit of luck at the end of this one, but they came through. That offense came through at the very end when they needed to, and Puka Nacua made some really big plays. He kind of just carried them on that last drive when Cup was out. So yeah, you love to see it from Puka and the Rams, and they got the win. And they beat the Seahawks twice this year too. That's crazy.
I couldn't have predicted this one. I thought the Seahawks would kind of come in here and handle business, especially losing week 1 to them. But the Seahawks were, again, they kind of remind me of the Chargers in this one. They're their own worst enemy. They got in their way. They missed a brutal game-winning field goal. I can't even believe that. Yeah, I mean, shout out to the Rams, though. I mean, they didn't play a perfect game, but they played well enough. And that's kind of been like the story of their season. They're only 4-6. They're not making the playoffs unless they get a bottom tier wild card spot. But for one of the worst rosters going through a rebuild, they do have some really good key pieces, and they've been able to draft some really good studs. I mean, Les Snead finding Puka Nacua out of BYU in the late rounds. I mean, they've built a really good, I would say, depth. Now they just got to get some of their star powers back. So there's a lot to look forward to in the Rams future. But yeah, from a fantasy aspect, Puka Nacua with Cooper Kupp. I don't know how long Cooper Kupp's out for, but it looks like Puka Nacua will be the wide receiver 1 and should be actually really solid going forward. Matthew Stafford's going to hyper target him. And then, yeah, just a weirder day for the Seahawks, not putting up a lot of points, when you think they would put up more. DK Metcalf did have a good day, 5 for 94 and a touchdown. And they've been decent at distributing the ball. It looks like they're targeting their top 3 the most. So that's what you like to see.
Yeah, you like to see the Seahawks 3 receivers being productive enough to start in fantasy again. It's pretty awesome. All 3 of them are startable, really. And interesting, Zach Charbonnet kind of is the bell cow now with Kenneth Walker. I don't know how serious the injury is, but he does go down, and it looks serious enough to where Charbonnet will be the starter for a few weeks. So Charbonnet is a real option in fantasy. They have a hard schedule, but he's almost a start if he is the only running back in that offense. But are you panicking with the Seahawks? They do look suspect. They don't look like they should be, especially offensively.
Yeah, I'm hitting a mild panic right now. I think the Seahawks are going to sneak their way into the playoffs, and I think they got some weeks to figure it out. But I mean, for whatever reason, the Rams just play them really well. It is a divisional game. They go at it with each other, and the Rams just seem to have their number for whatever reason. Kind of reminds me of like when Tom Brady would go play the Dolphins. The Dolphins would just have their number from week to week. And so, I mean, I'm hitting a slight panic, but I do think they'll figure it out and they'll make a wild card spot. So I'm not panicking too much.
I agree completely. And just what a chippy team this Rams team is. What a chippy team. Honestly, so much respect. They've been like this every single week this year. And we of all people definitely did not expect this. We'll be honest. We were looking at this roster, not expecting them to be this competitive with some really, really good teams. So shout out to the Rams. And like you said, I don't know how long Cooper Kupp is out, but Puka Nacua is a real wide receiver 1 option in fantasy while he is. And Royce Freeman is the main bell cow in that running back while Kyron Williams is hurt. Although Kyron might be back, so monitor that, and we'll get on to the Sunday night football game. The Vikings went into Denver and lost 21-20 to the Broncos. And shout out to my Broncos, man. They're on a 4-game win streak. They're looking really hot. They're a really good football team right now. I want to shout out Russ. He's been playing flawless football over the last month or so. He's been playing perfect football. I think he has the fewest interceptions in the entire NFL right now, which is compared to last year with that disastrous season. He was kind of the meme of the NFL. He was the butt of all the jokes. It's a really impressive resurgence. So shout out to him and shout out to the Broncos defense as well. Justin Simmons is balling. They really made Josh Dobbs uncomfortable. Josh Dobbs is a beast. I did want to shout out him because he had some good stats in this game. He didn't even look like he played bad because he's just such a gamer. He's so hard to tackle, so hard to sack. He's running around like a maniac. He's impossible to sack, really. And he had a rushing touchdown he definitely shouldn't have had. His passing touchdown, he made it happen. So he's an artist, and he makes plays when the play breaks down. So shout out to Josh Dobbs. He made it harder on the Broncos than it really should have been, honestly. And yeah, Alexander Mattison fumbling this away. He loves a fumble. But shout out to the Broncos and Cortland Sutton. He's a star. Sutton's a star right now.
Yeah, you kind of just said everything perfectly. You guys, sadly, I can't say Josh Dobbs this week. You guys had to ruin that for everyone. But he still played a heck of a football game, and he kept them competitive. And then one question for me is, why is Alexander Mattison still a starting running back? Ty Chandler looks so much more electric. It's so much better from every aspect of it. I mean, he's not fumbling the ball. He's a better receiver. He's a lot more electric on the ground. So please, Vikings, what are we doing with Alexander Mattison? It's painful to watch at this point. He's such a fumbler. But yeah, I mean, I got to talk about the Broncos in this one. I mean, that 4-game winning streak, they're really buying into Sean Payton, and they're having a good resurgence right now. And everyone on that team is playing really good football. The defense is playing really complimentary all of a sudden. They finally found their identity, it seems like. And I mean, Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain, man, they're just studs. They're just stars on that defense. And yeah, Russell, who was the meme of the NFL last year. I mean, what a comeback story for him. I mean, he was laughed at multiple times. I mean, he was made a fool of last year. And I mean, this season, I'm just going to pull up his stats for the whole year because he really has been super solid. So he's over 2,000 yards right now with 19 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You know, from last year where he was 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions and 3,500 yards. I mean, he's really having a good season this year, and it's not being talked about enough. And this Broncos team going forward looks like they're borderline playoffs. I mean, they're going to be competing over the next few weeks for a wild card spot. So shout out to the Broncos. I mean, really, really good football, and Sean Payton seems to have kind of found an identity for this team.
Yeah, like when you watch the Broncos, they really do they look the part. They seem like a playoff team. Sean Payton really has figured it out. So you are optimistic. They've got some big games coming up. They play the Browns, Texans, Chargers twice. They've got some really, really big games that are going to have some big AFC playoff implications. So really looking forward to that. And on the fantasy side of things, you're starting Sutton, like we said, every week because he's kind of a touchdown machine. He has 5 straight weeks with a touchdown. So that is absolutely crazy. Javonte Williams, you start based off volume. He wasn't as great in this game. Brian Flores does have a really good run defense for the Vikings team, though. And Samaje Perine had 7 catches for 60 yards. He's kind of a dart throw if you really need a running back, just because he's their third down back and he's their 2-minute drill back. So he gets a lot of dump offs from Russ. And then Jerry Jeudy, he's a dart throw. He's going to get some catches, but he's just not consistent enough to really start, in my opinion. And on the Vikings side of things, I think Josh Dobbs is going to be a start moving forward. The Broncos defense is really good. I think it's going to be a lot more open in the Vikings games moving forward. I think he's going to be a start. I think either Vikings running back, whoever's a starter. Like you said, Alexander Mattison has had fumbling issues all year, and the Vikings just go right back to him. The Bills bench James Cook immediately when he had that one fumble, but the Vikings just go right back to him. It's like they don't even care. It's kind of weird. I don't understand that, but TJ Hawkinson he's a beast. I will say Justin Simmons completely shut him down. He should have had a way better game than he did. He didn't hit his underdog line or anything because Justin Simmons kind of shut him down. And on that final drive, especially, he made it so TJ Hawkinson couldn't possibly catch a ball. He was pretty blanket coverage on him, and Jordan Addison had had a pretty decent day when he was opposite of Surtain. But other than that, it's hard against this Broncos defense. But I'm more optimistic about the Vikings options moving forward.
100%. Yeah, I mean, overall, both of these teams, both borderline playoff teams, it's going to be exciting to see how they both finish out this season and what they can do. Because I mean, they're both looking hot and both playing really good football. Obviously, you guys ended the Vikings' big win streak, but I mean, both teams are looking really good.
Yeah, big win streak for the Vikings. I'm not too worried about them. I think they'll be just fine in the NFC wild card. But we'll get on to the last game of the week, the Monday Night Football game. The Eagles went into Kansas City and won 21-17. They beat the run-first Kansas City Chief offense. They apparently just run it to Pacheco every single play. First down, second down, maybe even third down. The Chiefs are just going to run it up your throats against this really good Eagles defensive line. So I personally, watching this game, thought the game plan was terrible from Andy Reid. I don't know why, other than the fact that it was raining. I don't know why he had to run it every single play, and he kind of added a ceiling onto his incredible offense. And the Eagles defensive secondary is terrible. So I honestly think Andy Reid was just wrong on his game plan. And you got to attack the Eagles secondary, and he was just slowing the game down, running it every play. So I think he kind of lost the game because of his game plan. The Chiefs were kind of winning this whole game and kind of seemed like they were kind of taking care of it kind of easily. And then the Eagles just kind of came back at the end. DeAndre Swift had a really good game on the ground. So shout out to Swift. And yeah, Jalen Hurts, after throwing a pretty bad pick, he was able to come back after the Chiefs offense just was stalling because of just running it every play.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a weird offensive game. It didn't look like Jalen Hurts 14 for 22, 150, no touchdowns. Obviously he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, 12 for 29 2 touchdowns on the ground, but through the air, no touchdowns, 1 pick. And then Pat Mahomes was just off yesterday. I mean, his stat line 24-43, he was missing a lot of passes. He only threw for 177 yards. He was able to get 2 touchdowns. I mean, there was a big touchdown dropped at the end. And then obviously he throws an interception. But yeah, a weird offensive game. Both of them were definitely struggling against each other. In my opinion, obviously the Chiefs have a top 5 defense, so I get why the Eagles were struggling. But there's no reason that the Chiefs couldn't throw on the Eagles secondary more. And it was kind of weird. Travis Kelce, I mean, he didn't have a horrible game by any means. He was still 7 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. But it just didn't seem like they were utilizing him how they should. It was just kind of a stagnant game from the Chiefs offense. And me being a Chargers fan, I love to see the Chiefs lose, so I'm not going to be mad about it. But yeah, the Chiefs just, and I keep saying this year, they're so good. They're top of the they're top of the AFC. They're 7-3. But it just feels like they are so beatable week to week because of their offense. It just doesn't seem like they have a real good identity on their offense. Obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes to go play Superman and win us the game in some miraculous fashion. But their weapons just aren't fantastic outside of Travis Kelce.
No, you're right. It just watching the Chiefs, it just leaves you like with a lot of questions because they're just such a watered down offense, and they really shouldn't be. It's kind of like I was saying earlier, Andy Reid's calling the offense like insecure almost. He's calling it like he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in the most legendary passing offense in the NFL history. So I just don't really understand why you're not just going crazy through the air. Rashee Rice had a good game. Justin Watson had a good game when you went to them. I don't know why they didn't keep it up. Travis Kelce, like you said, it seems like he's a decoy out there. He really is like a decoy. He's never like the first read really, and if he is, he's always double teamed, so he just looks off of him. It's weird. It's weird. The Chiefs offense really does just feel bland and just like there's a ceiling on it, and it shouldn't really be that way with Andy Reid and the Chiefs. So it is weird. It's watching the Chiefs all year. It's kind of felt like they're a defensive team and they're a run first defensive team, and it's really weird. I don't understand why they still have the pieces to be electric.
And their defense plays a heck of football. I mean, their defense is electric, and I mean, L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, I mean, Drew Tranquil, Chris Jones. I mean, their defense, I mean, is really they're the reason they're 7-3 is because their defense. Their offense seems more like they should be 3-7 this year, to be honest with you. But that defense is just absolutely electric on the Chiefs side of the ball, and they're just, I mean, they're playing almost like I'd compare it to like the Jets. type of defense. I mean, they're a scary defense to play. Their corners are jumping routes. They're aggressive. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are a defensive team that likes to run the ball. And who would have thought? Who would have thought from the last, 5 years, or they've just absolutely they've changed the game. So all of a sudden they just have changed their identity this year. And given their receivers aren't nearly as good, but I mean, Rashee Rice is good enough to do it. Justin Watson was actually okay. But yeah, they look flat. But I mean, shout out to the Eagles for winning a tough football game. They found a way to get it done. The tush push is unstoppable. And that's my takeaway.
And I know you picked the Eagles, so like it might have been a different perspective from you, but like looking at this chart here, the Chiefs literally had 0 points in the second half. So it literally felt like the Chiefs had this game. They just didn't. The second half, they literally didn't do anything. They ran the ball every play. They were playing to like run the clock out, and it was just so unlike the Chiefs and so weird. They literally, I feel like the Eagles weren't even that competitive in this game. The Chiefs like kind of handily had the lead in the first half, and then they took the gas off the pedal. I don't know, man.
Like what you just said, I was watching the clock when the Chiefs were had the ball, and they were trying to bleed the clock. They were like just trying to get out of this game. They weren't trying to put up points by any means until their final drive, and they had to. And you saw Mahomes gave an absolute dime to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he drops it ultimately to lose. But I mean, that was like the first time they finally put their like foot on the gas, and it almost worked. But they were just stagnant. They, like you said, they played to bleed the clock, and that's not Chiefs football. That's not how the Chiefs win games.
Yeah, just an unconfident way of football. I think I need to talk to Andy Reid. I need to have a conversation with him. Who am I to be saying this? But Andy, let's be a little bit more aggressive. You have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but that was really fun talking about all these games. That Chiefs game is going to depress me too much talking about it any longer. But that was really fun. Thanks for covering Week 11 with me, and thanks for beating me in fantasy, Josh.
Yeah, of course. Rivalry week's over. Me and Dan can be friends starting next week. But crazy week of football. Excited for Week 12. This is where the good teams are going to start asserting themselves, like I keep saying, week to week. But I mean, we're really getting into as Scott Hansen would say, the witching hour. It feels like the witching hour of the schedule, and where wins become losses and losses become wins, however, whatever he says. But yeah. Good week. I'm fumbling all of a sudden.
Absolutely surreal. We're already in week 12. It's been a long pod. It's been a long day. It's cold outside. So yeah, we'll stay tuned to the NFL Seekers. We'll have a week 12 preview in a few days here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining, Josh. Peace.
Sure. Peace.